Welcome back. I'm Tom Hewitt, and this is News 13's Eye on the Election. I'm sitting here with David Pruhs, who's running for State House. And David, you're running against incumbent Scott Kawasaki, and you've painted him in some of your advertising and messaging as ineffectual, even though he's been down there for several terms now. You say he hasn't accomplished much. And in your eyes, how would you be more effective than Scott down in Juneau?
Well, first of all, upon election, I'll be a member of the majority. I'll be able to do things for Fairbanks that a member of the minority just can't do. Now, Scott has been more than available to do things, but has chosen not to. He could have entered into the majority as the Bush caucus did, but he was not accepted. So, as a member of the minority, he is not part of the budget. He's never passed a bill. He's never authored a bill that's passed. So after 6 years, Fairbanks needs more. And then it's gone more of a detrimental way with what Scott has done. If you look at his voting record against the gas line. The gas line is that one issue that we've been looking up here for more than 35 years. If they build a gas line, it would be equivalent to $1.50 per gallon heating fuel. But not only that, if you look at our tax basis, the Alyeska pipeline right now is 9% of the Fairbanks North Star Borough's tax basis revenue. That's also what you have to take into consideration. So we need that gas line not only for our home heating needs, but for the revenue base for the Fairbanks North Star Borough.
Governor Sean Parnell has called for a sizable cut in the state's oil excise tax scheme, and that didn't make it through this past legislative session, but it's sure to come up again. And what's your take on the governor's plan, and do you support it, or if not, what is the kind of thing that you would support?
Before I support any plan, I'd have to take a look at it and understand what the benefits and what it'll take away from the state of Alaska, but it must benefit the state of Alaska. Right now, our current tax structure taxes the net. And what we've learned down there over the last 6 years, they still do not know how to audit what the true net of an oil company is before they pay taxes on it. I've always thought that we should go back to taxing the gross of what an oil company does. It's easily definable. Our oil production is going down from 575 barrels per day down to about 560 this year. With a taxation on the gross, we have a definable amount we can place a budget on. With a tax on the net, we don't even know if that is the true net. And so that system has to change. But before you change it, you have to know what the benefits to the state of Alaska is and what it's giving up, but what it will increase for us.
Mayor Luke Hopkins' plan for a borough-run natural gas utility seems to be the plan for delivering gas to Fairbanks that the municipalities in Fairbanks, North Pole, and the borough are coalescing behind. And they're doing that with an eye on securing state funding and support for that project, whether in the form of funds for a liquefaction plant on the North Slope, or trucking down to Fairbanks, or building out the distribution network here locally. Is the mayor's plan something that you see yourself supporting if you're down in Juneau, or is there something else that you think you'd support?
Well, there's two ways I have to look at that. One, if that is a plan in place for the Fairbanks North Star Borough, I will support it, and I'll work hard at it. But I also like what the city of Fairbanks did, and then what the Borough Assembly did. They put in other portions of that legislation to make it better for the borough. If the borough does not meet certain obligations, the city can take their right to have that back. And they do not want them to go in to compete with Fairbanks Natural Gas unless they have assembly approval. So they put some very good checks and balances in place in that, and they tightened it up over the last 3 days. So I think that's very good. Personally, I support it. But even as a legislator on something like that, if that's what your Fairbanks North Star Borough, if that's what your city of Fairbanks has determined that is to be done, as a legislator, you go do it for them.
Last year, Governor Parnell made a point of keeping the base student allocation for K-12 education funding steady at the same amount it had been at the year before, and not increasing it. He said he wanted to see guarantees of improvements, whether in the form of improved graduation, lower dropout, that sort of thing, before he would increase that base student funding allocation. What do you feel about the state of education funding here in Alaska and the governor's reasoning as far as not increasing it?
Over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to have to increase it just for our school district to keep up with the cost of energy. That is the single most cost increasing aspect that we have to deal with. Fairbanks, other interior areas have been having, over the last 3 to 5 years, an annual rate of 5% to 15% increase, taking away directly from the students. So in the interior of Alaska, we're going to have to address that. We're going to have to increase it. We have to show the governor why we must increase that, because it's starting to take away from getting better teachers up here and paying for the infrastructure itself because of the energy costs for our schools.
All right, well, I think that's about all the time we have, but thank you very much for coming in, David.
Appreciate it.
And for the rest of you, don't go away just yet. We've got Jamie Schwartzwald coming up next with sports.